Welcome back, everybody, to another session of Star Trek Adventures Captain's Log. Today I will be continuing with my playthrough of Lieutenant Commander Sarah Paulson. First off, thank you everyone for the amount of love this series has gotten over the last month or so. Weird to think it's already been a month. Have seen the channel grow from a scant handful of followers up to above 60 as of the time of recording this, which I thoroughly appreciate. It has let me know that there are people who are still interested in seeing me continue with the story. Second, I want to thank those who have commented with constructive criticism, that's the word. I've taken it to heart. I've reviewed some of the rules for Captain's Log that differ from the original core game, and will be trying to stick a little closer to rules as written for Captain's Log, compared to what I was doing before. On that note, I do have my physical copy now, so I may be referencing that a little more often. Before I dive into today's mission, I'd like to ask a question for those of you at home. Leave a comment, if you will. How are you tabbing your books? I've started to lay out some first draft tabs. I don't want to put in anything more permanent until I get a better idea for things. But what sections do you find that you're going back to more often than others? Have you tabbed the character creation stuff as well as the probability matrices, or is it mostly just the back half with kind of the rules and the probability matrices that you end up going back to more often than not? That's still something I'm going to be looking at over the next few weeks, is getting my book nicely tabbed. But I'd be very interested to hear and see what you all have done as well. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into today's mission. First Officer's Log, Stardate 2198.8. The USS Jemison was en route to Arcturis VII to perform yet another system survey for the Federation Science Council when we picked up a distress call emanating from the Beta Argulis system. Our records show a native species, but no official contact had previously been made. In examining the records, which date back nearly 100 years, the only thing of note that I find is a reference to the Canyon of Cava'xit. There's a blurry image from the survey probe, but all I can make out is a strangely oblong planet. And that's where we're going to jump in to our first bit of the mission, which I have tentatively called Strike of a Match, and we will see how apt that is based on where I think the story is going. So let's go ahead and dive right in. The camera cuts to an exterior shot once again of the USS Jemison, and we see it drop out of warp on the edge of a star system. We see a number of planets. For the moment, we'll say there are 6 visible as the camera kind of does a fancy cinematic zoom over the scene. And it zooms in towards, we'll call it Beta Argulis III. It's the 3rd planet in the solar system, and it looks, for all intents and purposes, like a desert planet. It's on the outer edge of its orbit. It's very clearly kind of earthy tones, beige, with some red, some sandy colors. And the camera, which had started on the kind of the night side of Beta Argulis III, pans around in orbit of the planet until we see suddenly this massive crack, for lack of a better term, as if the planet has split in 2 and is hanging on by a single thread. You can see, comparing the shots of from the kind of the intro teaser of Commander Paulson's survey data, why the planet suddenly looked oblong is because it's literally been unfolded to an extent. And we see that crack is approaching the terminus between night and day. Furthermore, in orbit, as the camera pulls back again, there are probably in excess of hundreds to thousands of ships, ranging from small personal craft, 1 or 2 man, very small ships, to larger ships more on the scale of the Jemison itself. And all of them seem to just be kind of orbiting in a geostationary orbit of the crack, and essentially no one seems to be moving, especially not at a hurried pace, for a location that supposedly has a distress call coming from it. The Jemison pushes in, and we see Commander Paulson on the bridge. The captain is there as well. He's sitting in the captain's chair. And the communications officer says, "Incoming hail, Captain." Captain Malik says, "All right, put it on screen." And we see an image, fuzzy image of a handful of aliens, humanoids, again sticking with that kind of TOS style. We'll say they've got like a horn on the top of their heads. That sounds interesting. And all of them have, the handful that we see at least, their horns have look like they've been chiseled to have a crack in the middle. Or at the very least, whether or not it's man-made, all of their horns have a crack in the middle. Giving away some of my thoughts already. The one kind of closest to the view screen says, "Please, we've crashed in the Canyon of Cava'xit. We need assistance. No one else is helping. Please hurry." And the call goes dead. All right. So let's have our first task be, the captain turns to Commander Paulson and says, "Analysis, Commander." And let's go ahead and do our first task. I think we're going to try to do everything using Commander Paulson. I don't know how long that's going to last. That's still not something I'm as comfortable with. But we will have her give her analysis. And in this case, it'll be a mix. I think we can do like a we'll do a reason science to see if she can determine from the preliminary scans what's going on. Once again, I'm using my red dice. I may switch to another color if these betray me as my yellow ones did, but we will see. So, reason science, that is a 12. We're looking for one success here, not particularly difficult. That is a 2 and an 8. I do not have a relevant focus, but that is one success. Commander Paulson turns to the captain and says, "Sir, it looks like their vessel has crashed in a deep part of the canyon, close to what might have been the planetary core. Further, they are sitting on the edge of a precipice, and it looks like at nearly any second they're liable to tip over." "Recommendations, Commander?" "Yes, sir. I think it best, it's a small vessel. I think it best to keep the Jemison out of harm's way and let me take a shuttlecraft in and see if we can't hook it up with the grapplers and see if we can't pull them out of there." Captain thinks for a second, strokes his chin. "All right, Commander. Take her out, see what you can do." And I'm thinking, I seem to recall having come up with names of the shuttles before, but I can't remember. So let me look up real quick. I remember how I came up with the names. So all I have to do, and this was, I thought, very clever of me. Yes, so she will take Shuttle Jerome. Actually, no, we'll take Shuttle Lee down to the crashed vessel. And the shuttles on the USS Jemison are all named after Mae Jemison's fellow STS-47 crewmates. Which I think is a fun nod. Okay, fantastic. We have our first mission task successfully completed. Commander Paulson is going to then fly a shuttle in. This is very clearly a moment for some interesting cinematics. We see the shuttle drop out of the launch bay. She's taken let's see, Petty Officer Bassett from tactical to operate the grappler hooks. And probably nobody else at the moment. And so the shuttle is flying in. Let's go ahead and add a bit of a complication here. As the shuttle flies in, we see Paulson and Petty Officer Bassett discussing, the challenges that flying through a canyon that's literally a crack in a planet, the challenges that poses, how gravity will at some points be coming from all around them, and as they get close to what was what was the core and what is now the center of gravity, they will have a zero net gravitational effect. And all of the, they're getting into a lot of technical jargon when the ship receives a hail. On screen, we see more humanoids of the same species. They have a horn atop their head. Maybe this horn is a little less unicornish and maybe a little more devilish, a little curved. And the voice on the other end says, "Whoever you are, you need to stop at once. You're heading into precious territory. We hold the Canyon of Cava'xit in high regard, and you will not be disgracing it or those who have come before us with your presence." Commander Paulson replies, "There are people hurt down there and in danger of risking becoming a permanent part of your so-called canyon. Now, do you have any good reason for us to not go in and assist them?" And essentially, I'm going to use this as the second task. We're going to have this be a presence command test. We'll call it presence command. That's a 15. I think as we're dealing with a almost religious fervor from the person on the other end, I'm going to say it's a difficulty 2 test. But I don't mind about that so much as it's a DC 15. Not particularly tough. Should, on average, get both of them. So, let's go ahead and do it. Well, these dice have betrayed me. That's 1 success and a threat. I rolled a 20. So, not unfortunately enough, the person on the other end says, "Whoever you are, stop now or you will be fired upon." And as they have no jurisdiction here, Commander Paulson, realizing that the ship in distress is on a precipice, it's a tricky situation. So we've got our first success, first failure out of the way. What should I do with that threat? Is there anything useful here? That's a good question. I don't think a threat is going to come into play on that exact roll, but as the ship kind of sits there, the comm frequency goes dead, and Petty Officer Bassett turns to Commander Paulson and says, "Well, sir, are we going to just take that, or are we going to risk it?" It didn't seem like it was an official request, if you ask me. They didn't identify themselves. Petty Officer, you are assuming that they operate under the same rules that we do. I don't think that's a great assumption. So we're just going to let them dictate policy? We're going to just let them keep us from helping those who need it? Petty Officer, I thought you knew me better than that. And we're going to get to a chase scene. So this is going to be a daring con test. Difficulty 1, DC 13. And we will go ahead and spend that threat now. It has been a couple of weeks since I've last played, so that threat will increase the difficulty to a difficulty of 2. That's how I'm going to choose to do that. I know that's still a pretty typical original Star Trek Adventures thing, but in this case, I think it makes more sense to just make it a little more difficult, and that kind of amplifies the notion that they're being fired upon as they go. Difficulty 13, we're looking for 2 successes. Target number 13. Excuse me, I've been playing a lot of D&D lately. So let's go for it. And we do have a valid focus. Small craft and evasive actions are both in play. We're looking for rolls under 4 to generate that momentum. Okay, that is a 2, which will generate a momentum, and a 19. So we'll say that this is going to be a succeeds at a cost, as obviously the ship is not going to be destroyed. They are going to get through the blockade, but that cost, they're going to take a hit on their ship. So let's go back to... Yeah, let's see what happens to the shuttlecraft. So, let's see what gets hit. That's a 7. That is their sensors. That's going to cause some problems. Although, that threat table I was looking at earlier might be even better. Let's get back to that page. Threat spends 278. Because there was a good systems failure. We rolled a 7. Life support and environmental systems. You know, I think that's even better. So they take a direct hit to their life support systems, and but they're able to, because their engines are fine, they are able to get through, and we are 3 tasks in, and yet to have a second successful task. All right. So the ship is coming in, and they have a dire emergency growing. They need to do this very quickly. Fortunately for us, we do have a momentum, and real quick, I'm just going to take a look at some of these momentum spends. Because they will very quickly come into play. We are going to need those. Let me take a look at... A little bit rusty. It has been 2 weeks, I believe I said, since I last ran this. So... I think I passed it. That's all right. We'll get to the momentum spend in a moment. I believe I can use it to reroll the d20, and that's likely what I'm going to end up needing to do, as we're heading for a disaster otherwise. So I think we're going to have another piloting test, and this one is probably not going to be a daring con, but more of a control con, as Commander Paulson attempts to essentially fly the ship as skillfully as she can down through the canyon, to the location of the crashed alien ship. And actually, daring con might be the better option, because normally she'd be taking her time to get through there, unless either someone was shooting at her, or she had another reason for going extremely quickly. With life support being out, I think she'd be trying to go very quickly. So we'll call this a daring con once again, this time with evasive actions as a much more applicable focus, as she's, diving in and out. It's the trench run, just with more rocks and less Death Stars. So, daring con, once again a 13 with a focus in play. We got a 1 and a 7, that is 2 successes. We already have a momentum up. One thing I have learned, thank you for those of you who commented, in Captain's Log, a 1 is not an automatic success, or is not a second success on top. It just generates a momentum. Anything under the focus value does, the discipline value, with an applicable focus. So thank you for those of you who commented on that. But we did get our requisite successes. So Commander Paulson, in the 4th task, has managed to just barely get the shuttlecraft down to this alien vessel. Now at this point... I believe the last thing we're going to do here is retrieve the alien vessel with the grappling hooks, and we'll call this a. She's giving orders and kind of guiding Petty Officer Bassett. So we'll call this a presence security, a 13. Yeah, I think that works. It seems good enough to me. Or reason command. They both add up to the same thing, so it doesn't really matter. But reason command probably makes more sense. Because she's using that command discipline more than she's using the security discipline. So yeah, we'll say it's reason command, trying to point out the more practical and logical locations to apply grappling hooks and so on and so forth. So that is a 13. We got a 3 and an 18. That is one success. And just like that, we have our 5th task accomplished. The shuttle locks on with its grappling hooks. Petty Officer Bassett fires. They attach to the hull at 3 different points, creating a nice, secure, and hopefully not too wobbly ride back up for the damaged shuttlecraft. And we see just before the Jemison's shuttle pulls up, the alien shuttle begins to tip and slide down deeper into the planet. And at the last moment, with a burst of thrusters, Commander Paulson lifts off, taking the alien shuttle with them. And she flies back up through the complicated gravity situation to the USS Jemison, where there are a number of ships that within orbits that have kind of started to converge on the Jemison. So in a moment not too dissimilar to Sulu in The Final Frontier, she's going to come in for a Plan B barricade. Not quite that fast, but is going to hustle straight to the Jemison shuttle bay, where she will land both her craft and the alien vessel she is attached to. And that's going to be where we leave off for this first session. We have handled the rescue of this alien vessel. Now we've got some complications to deal with, as there are those around who are very clearly disturbed by the, shall we say, invasion of their rituals. So with that, I will see you in the next session. Until then, live long and prosper.